All right. Yesterday you got to do some working with the other day, I guess, 2 days ago, you got to work with some five strips. I call them five strips. Today you're going to work with 10 frames. I should have called the five strips, five frames. Sometimes we make mistakes in life and sometimes we just learn from them and try to be better as we go. Today you're going to be working with 10 frames and you're going to need a page out of your homework book. It's out of this book right here. So you will need page number 65. It's got a little green duck at the bottom of it, and it looks like this. And you will need a pencil and maybe some counters and your 10 frame that we made with mom and dad, auntie, uncle, cousin, whoever might be helping you out, the thing that we made the other day. So yesterday, or the last time we did math, we worked with just half of it with the 5 spots. Today we are going to unfold this guy and we're going to use these things the way they are intended to be used. And we are going to use the whole thing. It's called a 10 frame. We call this thing a 10 frame because, any guesses? I can't hear you. This is a video, but I hope you shouted it as loud as possible. We call this a 10 frame because it has 10 spaces or 10 little spots on it to put things in, to put counters in. So I'm going to count them for you just so you don't have to take my word. I'll prove it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Why do we have 10 spaces on here? It's going to help us out with a whole bunch of stuff. But the short answer is that 10 is just an easier number to work with while we're working with math. Think about every time you've ever tried to count to 100. One of the times that you tried to count to 100, you do it by ones and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 22, and you count forever. There's a whole bunch of different numbers in there. Sometimes you could make a lot of mistakes when there's a whole bunch of numbers. There's 100 numbers if you count by 1. But if you count by 10, it's super fast, it's super easy. You go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. That's 10 different numbers. It just takes a lot. Wait a second, I have 10 fingers. Maybe that's why it's so easy to count by 10, because I have fingers and I can just be like, whoa, that's both my fingers, that's 10. So we, as our number system, like to put everything into nice, neat little packages of 10 to help us count out how many things we have once we get into the bigger numbers. So today we're going to work with our 10 frame. It's going to be the same kind of work we were doing with the 5. It's just going to involve some bigger numbers, and it's going to have some more spaces for us to use for our numbers. So for today's lesson, I'm going to pull out some numbers. I'm going to show you how they look on our 10 frame. And you can turn these however way you want. I like to keep them sideways while I'm working with them. It just makes it easier for my brain to count them. On our homework, it's going to have them up like this. It doesn't really matter. There's always going to be 10 homes for our counters. So let's just look at how some of the numbers look when we put them on our 10 frame. We'll start pretty easy. We'll start with the number 1, okay? So if I had one thing, I would take my counters. You can pull out your counters now. We're just going to find a little home for it, okay? That's 1. So how many do we have on our 10 frame? Well, we have 1 on there. How many empty spaces do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 empty spaces on there. Totally cool. What would 10 look like on our 10 frame, okay? So let's look at that. Here's our numeral 10. Okay, so this is what it looks like in one way. On our 10 frame, it's called a 10 frame because we need 10 things on it to show the number 10. So I filled it all the way up. I didn't count them out, I just filled it up, okay? I didn't count them out in my brain while I was putting them there. I just tried to fill up all the boxes. I know that I have 10 boxes. But now I want to check to make sure that I didn't give myself too many extra boxes, because if I did, I made the wrong 10 frame. So I'm going to count them now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I did it right. And if you guys have noticed, I moved those things. I didn't just touch them and count them, because sometimes if you touch and count things and you just start counting in your brain and you don't pay attention to what you're touching, you might mix up your number. I love to move them when I'm counting them. That way I don't ever mix up the number. So I'm going to put them right back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that is my 10 frame. It is called a 10 frame. It's got a good name because there are 10 little homes for it. So we did make this one correctly. We double checked ourselves. We can kind of look at other numbers on there too. We don't just have to do 1, don't have to do 10. We can work with whatever number we pull out. So I pulled these cards out because they have random numbers on them. Then we can kind of put some on here and just mess around with them a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna pull one up. Shout out the number at me. 4. We're gonna talk a little bit about 4 in our 10 frames, okay? So we got our little 10 frame picture here. We don't want to fill it all the way up, because if we fill it all the way up, we wouldn't have 4. So we want to take out our little counters and we want to count out 4 of them and put them into these little spaces. The one rule with the 10 frame is you can't put 2 things in one space. If you do, it messes it all up. It's only one thing. Guess I'm doing a good job. They rang a bell for me. So we're going to make sure that we only put one thing in each space. So for the number 4, I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4 things on there. And from there we can kind of talk about if this number is bigger, less than, greater than, or less than 10, because this is a 10 frame. Last time we messed around with the number 5. This time we can mess around with the number 10. We could talk about how many spaces there are and how far away from 10 it is too. I have 4 things right here. I know that these are empty spaces, so right away I know that 4 is less than 10. It wasn't enough to get all the way full, so it's less than. But how many less than? How many numbers are we missing to get to 10? How many fingers would we have to put up to make sure that we have 10 fingers up? You can do some counting. We can use this to do that, just in case let's say you have mittens on or your hands disappear for a day. You can put them on this. You might have some trouble putting them in the boxes with your nose, but you can use 10 frame to help you out with it. So I have 4 right here. Let's figure out how many we need to get to 10. We need all these empty spaces here. We need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We would need 6 things to get to 10. So I have 4 right now, and 4 is less than 10 or smaller than 10, and it's less than 10 by 6 whole things. We're missing 6 things. So that's one of the numbers that we can mess around with. Let's pick another one and check it out. I pulled out a 5. So we're going to do 5. Let's put them on our 10 frame here. Here's our 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we filled up a whole row. We know that 5 is less than 10 because I didn't fill up the whole 10 frame. But we can also figure out how many less it is. So let's look at it. I've got 5 filled up. All these blank spaces are how many we're missing to make it a group of 10, okay? So if I was showing it to you on my fingers, I can ask you, how many fingers am I missing to get to 10? Will it be all these fingers I haven't counted out yet? These are like the empty spaces, this hand right here. So I've got this many on my little board. Now we can count these boxes to figure out how many we're missing. So I've got 5 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. So if I counted my things that I have and my spaces together, I would have 10 things, but 10 of them are gone, or 5 of them aren't here. So that what I'm missing right here is 5 things. I've got 5 and I'm missing 5. So that's your 10 frame. It always works out to collect groups of 10, because like I said, groups of 10 are just easier to count when you start getting into bigger numbers. So if you have any questions about these, let's do a silly one, because 5's it works out real nice and neat with that. Let's look at 7. Okay, I want to show you how to use the second row of your 5 strip. So right now I've got 7. I say I want to put 7 things on my little thing. I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now I put 7 things on my 10 strip, 7 counters. So I'm less than 10. I still know I'm less than 10 because I still have spaces right here. But I can tell you exactly how many less than 10 I am, how many things I would need to put in this thing to make it up to 10, because I've got this many already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is how many I would need to make it up to 10. So I count those to do that. I say 1, 2, 3. I'm missing 3 things. So 7 is less than 10, and it is less than 10 by 3 things. So while you're working with your 10 strip today, you got some work out of your workbook to do. I want you to remember what those numbers look like. You got to keep working on that. And what you're going to do is you're going to use a 10 strip. There's one provided in your workbook. So on this it says draw dots on the 10 frame to match each numeral. Okay? So we've got some numerals right here. Here's one, and here's one. And you're gonna be drawing dots in these 10 frames to match it. So this number right here is the number that we just did. So I'm going to show you on the one that I've already made. This number right here is 7. Okay. Here's 7. So when you're making this, you can put your counters out on this to help you out. I put my 7 in a row straight down and then 2 more up here. So on my picture right here, what I would do is I would draw my row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that would be this one. That's how you show this on your book. And I want you to look at these numerals right here. And if you don't know what those numerals are, ask somebody in your house. We're all learning at the same time. And it's perfectly okay to be like, I don't know what this one is. Can you please tell me what it is? And then you can count out the things on your 10 frame, okay? On the second part down here, it's a little bit different. You have to count the little dots. So it's kind of like we don't know what the number is, but they say, hey, will you fill up your frame to look like this? So this frame is this right here. I got rid of one of my dots. And then you just count them. And you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 6 dots right here on this little box. There's 6 guys on my little 10 frame. And then you got to figure out, what does a 6 look like? Uh-oh. And if you don't know, again, just ask somebody, what does a 6 look like? Can you help me out? There's nothing wrong with that while we're learning. So that's your work today. You're working with that 10 frame. Keep working with it. There's exciting stuff coming up with that 10 frame. Keep working and thinking about how many can fill it up and how many you would get different from 10 while you're working on that work today. And then tomorrow we're going to do or the next day you work on math, we're going to do some 10 frames but in weird spots and how that helps us with counting. So we will see you then for your next math assignment. Have a good day.